Everybody, welcome back to Business and Life Stories with Mike and James. We're sponsored by Capital Finders. And tonight we have a super special guest with us. We have Bear Ryan, the rock and roll barber of Austin, and she has an amazing story and lots of cool stuff to share. Welcome, Bear.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I guess the first question some folks are going to have, because of course we have an international audience, but Ryan sounds like an Irish type of last name. Where does Bear come from?
Bear's been my nickname since I was teeny tiny. Because I'm Irish, we tend to recycle the same names over and over. I come from a very large family, and it's all, Patrick, Sean, Kevin, and then it's Karen, Colleen, Bridget. So we just kind of reuse names, and I'm the youngest of lots of cousins, and so I was named after my cousin Karen, but we spent every weekend together, so the youngest one gets the nickname so that you can differentiate. So it was just Care Bear, and then very promptly Bear. And I was called that my whole life, and then I even tried to lose the nickname a few times, in my late teens and early 20s. I thought it was uncool or unprofessional, entering the job force. But even when I would try to just not even bring it up, it would follow me. People would just start to call me Care Bear. It would become Bear. And then probably 20 years ago, I literally just started introducing myself with that name. And that's been it. Now it's like the IRS is the only person that uses my real name. And I avoid that like the plague. So yeah, it's just a nickname.
Yeah, it's the American way. We never want the IRS to have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
So you're a barber and you're a rock and roll musician, and you're getting quite a bit of attention around Austin.
Yeah.
So Red on Yellow Music, that's your company, right?
Yes.
So Tell us about that. How did you get the idea? How'd you get started? What are some of the challenges you've dealt with?
Yeah. So Red on Yellow was born of the breakup of a previous band. I was actually a singing drummer in a duo prior to that. And it was gaining a lot of momentum, but I was in a band with a significant other, and it went down in a blazing glory. We had done some national tours, and I had a lot of contacts and stuff. So when that band ended, I wanted to continue that momentum as quickly as possible. I was also changing as a musician at the time and wanted a bigger sound than a duo. So I quickly scrambled to find some musicians to find Red on Yellow. And there's a lot of aspects, but the name came from the rhyme Red on Yellow, kill a fellow, red on black, friend of Jack, which in the American South generally is how you teach children how to identify a coral snake from a scarlet king snake. And the coral snake is one of the most venomous snakes in the United States. But it also, and snakes are just cool in rock and roll. So I thought like snake imagery would be great. And I always loved that rhyme. But it was also sort of this hidden nod to my musical influences, because you generally find the coral snake in Texas and the southeastern United States. And I am particularly interested in hill country Delta blues. So it was kind of, I knew people from that region would know that rhyme and that particular snake. So it's a nod to my musical influences and the region that it comes from. And then actually I founded my band with a gentleman, the most Italian man alive, named Emanuele Pastucchia. And I found him on Instagram, actually. It was the first time I ever knowingly used a hashtag. I was desperate for a guitar player because I was reforming a band, didn't know what I was doing. I was sitting in barber school, and a friend of mine was like, oh, just search Austin guitarist. And sure enough, I did. Sorry, my dog is going crazy in the background. I searched Austin guitarist, and I found this guy who was making all of these demo videos for amps and guitars, but all of the music he was playing was hill country Delta blues, like really specific R.L. Burnside, Junior Kimbrough kind of stuff. And I was like, this guy's in Austin. And like a crazy person, I messaged him on Instagram and was like, hey, want to form a band? I didn't know him at all. And he said, yeah, meet me at a coffee shop. And we met and we liked all of the same music and became like the best of friends. And then all of the other members sort of organically came together. But it was, I mean, we played our first gig 30 days after meeting each other and recorded our first EP 30 days after that. So it was a whirlwind. Yeah. But it took off very quickly. And next thing we knew, we were playing little festivals and we had a residency at Antone's and it was bizarre and wonderful. Yeah. So that's Red on Yellow.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 30 days to get your first gig and your first record out is really fast, right?
It is. And part of that is I leveraged the contacts that I had from my previous band. They were kind of like, hey, what are you doing? I said, I got this new thing. And they were like, yeah, go. Sure, here's a spot, you know. And then the EP, I'm always writing. Writing is my favorite thing. So I had material ready to go. And Manuela and I just clicked and we write really fast together. And I have a really blue collar work ethic about that, mostly because I have no money. So I don't have the luxury of going into a studio for like a month like the Stones, you know, and writing in the studio. That would be a dream, but I don't have that. So I was like, boom, 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 here are these songs. We're going to record 5 songs in 8 hours. And we did it live. And my musicians are super pro, so they crushed it. Yeah. Yeah.
So it sounds like stories I've heard from Will and Charlie Sexton here in town, Jimmy Vaughn.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they've all told me similar things that when they were starting out, and of course they were all mentored by W.C. Clark, but even so, you wouldn't give them any time.
Yeah.
Just tell them, you guys got 20 minutes to pop out a song and do what you can do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
There's a beauty in business of learning to do things quickly,
Mm-hmm.
not worrying if they're, you know, exactly perfect and just doing it.
Yes. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that actually. And, you know, give me 2 weeks in the studio and I would love it. And I would play with all of the tools in the studio and try everything. But I also think that there's a lot to be said for being decisive and allowing for magic, but then just being like, yep, that was it. Just go. Because you can overthink yourself into a deep, dark hole in the studio and spend a lot of money. So yeah, I just think that there's something to be said for just practice, 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 and then just go in that day and just do the thing. So yeah.
So do you find there's a big difference with your new band when you're playing? Does the size of the audience make a difference when you're up there, or do you guys play pretty much the same wherever you are?
Well, so I go into every gig like it's important. And I'm gonna just perform as like with my heart. Whether there's one person in the bar or a couple hundred, you know. And actually one of my most productive gigs I ever had was one of our worst. We played a restaurant. We were too loud for the restaurant. The restaurant liked us and they were like, yeah, come and be loud and ruin our dinner service, which we did. But it just so happened that one of the bigger bookers in the Southeast United States was eating dinner that night and asked who I was and followed up and offered me a big festival. So I definitely don't discount who is in that room, even if it's one person. So I definitely show up at every gig. And this is like what I do for joy. So like I never show up like, you know, like I'm going to put my heart into it. And then I don't know if your question was more about the size of the audience or the size of the band, but
the audience. And the reason I asked that, I figured that was your attitude, but I wanted our listeners to hear it because so many of our audience are out there kind of, if they're not getting the big contract or they're not getting the big attention, they kind of start to feel low. And the point I wanted to make is we're professionals. Yeah. Professionals don't do that.
Yeah, no. Well, and I'd rather play to 3 people looking at me and listening and feeding off the energy than to 100 who are looking down at their cell phone. So the energy can be huge with just a few people. And it can be small with a lot of people. I mean, preferably a lot of people in big energy. That's wonderful.
Sure.
It's great, but it doesn't have to be that. You can have a really fantastic gig in a small room. I love playing small rooms because the energy is just, I feel like it's bigger. Just like I like raw recordings with less because the sound can be actually huge rather than things being muddled with too much. So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, if anybody's listening and is a musician, do them all like they count because you don't know who's in that room.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I remember being at a business conference and I wasn't the presenter. I was just sitting listening, but the guy sitting next to me turned out to be one of the best contacts I've ever made.
Yeah.
And we were the only two, we started talking because we were the only two people in the room that weren't looking at our phones.
Yeah.
I thought, well, this is somebody I need to meet. This person's paying attention.
Yeah. And I've played the gig where you're playing to the bartender and the engineer. In fact, during the pandemic, I joked to my mom that the live stream wasn't that hard. I was like, oh, I've played to an empty room before. But I don't discount the bartender liking my music because the next week they may have told the happy hour crowd, I like this next band that's coming up. You should stick around. And that absolutely happened at Antone's for us. The staff liked us. And next thing I knew, we were showing up to bigger and bigger crowds. And they were tourists, so they didn't know who we were. And it was the staff. They were kind of like our ground troops for us, saying, we like this band. You guys should stick around. So I will play to a bartender all night long. If they dig it, if I see their head bobbing, cool. I want to come back to this club and play again and again.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting, with sort of parallels over to the business world. There's a lot of talk about, should you dilute your message and put it out to everyone, or should you what's called sort of niche it down, like just so as you said, one extreme is you could play in a conference center to 1,000 people, but most of those are bored or they're on their phone or they aren't really into it, right? Whereas that's sort of mass marketing, or you could just, as you said, play to a bartender and a couple of people, and if they really get into it, then which doors can they open? And it's the same, which we are always talking about, aren't we, Mike? About really to have the best marketing it's much better to hypothetically walk along a narrow, like as an analogy, walk along a narrow corridor, but then open a door and there's 20 people there who are holding out 5, 10, 50K. Yeah, man, I want to work with you. And that's so much more rewarding than just splattergunning your marketing over the internet, and no one reaches it. So
I think that's also one of those quality over quantity things, like especially my current project, because my band, as a result of the pandemic, hasn't really come back together. People had to make moves, mostly like job wise and stuff. So I'm now solo project, kind of recreating myself in a great way. It's actually been really cool. But like, I couldn't be more small niche kind of stuff. Like, I like to make I basically like to take old hill country blues, make it a little bit more modern and grimy. I'm female, left-handed, and 43 years old. Like, 20-year-olds are not looking for my music. So if I try to go like wide net, I'm not going to catch too many people. But if I go really niche, like my friend likes this really niche band and this niche band and tells their friend about me, it's the quality fans. Those are the people who become super fans and they never leave you, But I'm not going to appeal to the 25-year-old who wants to listen to like pop radio. And that's okay. Like I know my demographic, but yeah, I want quality over quantity. It's slow growth, but it's like lasting growth, And same with my barbering. Honestly, it's all word of mouth. I do no marketing, but it's people who tend to they like coming to the Rock and Roll Barber who likes to talk about music. You know, I love cutting hair, but I like talking about art and music. And so my tribe kind of comes to me, you know, so.
Well, it is cool when you walk in, you have the straight razor collection for the shaving, and you get the guitar on the wall,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
plus you're a girl on top of it, which is, you know, really, it's unusual to see
It
female
is.
barbers around here. And the whole thing is just really neat.
Yeah. I've always been the weirdo everywhere I go. So that's normal. I've always been just slightly like, huh, she, okay, lady barber, guitar player, what? But yeah.
I mean, really, there's so much, as you probably know, there's such a degree of lack of authenticity in the world now. And so many people, due to either peer pressure or social media pressure, they're afraid to step into their authentic self, their weird self, their self, whatever it is. And if you're a totally normal person, which most people aren't, but that's totally cool. But I think what's sad and doing a injustice to who we serve and who we are ourselves is to not feel confident enough to embrace the weirdness within us, the uniqueness within us, for fear of criticism, or because there will always be people who are going to dig a 43-year-old barber
Yes.
who likes playing rural hill Texan blues. I mean,
Yes.
and those people are going to be so much more passionate than
Yes.
somebody maybe loves urban rap, but you just want to send your message out to them because it's and that takes a lot of guts, like to be able to step into it. And you often feel that the people who are able to step into their authentic selves can then portray their emotions more readily because they kind of tapped into it.
Yeah.
And I mean, have you found that the more emotions that you can convey through your music, the more it brings people together?
100%. It's funny that you mentioned that because I've been thinking a lot about, oh man, this brings up a huge topic. Musicians hate the word brand more than anything because it sounds like a sellout word. But really, like, a brand is your logo that represents probably your product, which whatever your sound is your product. But you can do all of that, your vision, your goals, you can do that authentically, you know. So I've been thinking about those things, like what is my product, what is my brand, who am I? And that quest for authenticity, I think, is really inherent in what I'm doing. And a lot of that goes to my backstory, which is I didn't start making music professionally, or I had never sung in front of anyone in my entire life until I was 35 years old. And I loved singing, but I hid it from people. And it's that whole hiding yourself, your authentic self. You spend the first half of your life sort of being convinced away from that, whether intentionally or not. I think a lot of people just, we're raised on such like lack consciousness and survival. So we get talked out of our authentic selves. But we all keep it, and it's whether we tap back into it or not. Anyway, when I was 35, I tapped back into it in a huge way. And it freaked people out. I mean, imagine my parents when 35 years old. I'm like, I'm a singer in a band now, and I'm going to go tour the Midwest. They were like, you've lost your mind. You're going through a crazy midlife crisis. But then people came around to it. People, they move back from it, and then they move forward and they go, wait, what? You can do that? And so I think a lot of my messaging and my whole purpose is to tell people that you can be creative at 35 and 40 and 50 and 60 and 70, and there's no rules. And it resonates with people. People get excited about it. I mean, I think Gatemouth Brown started playing guitar at 58 years old. and I started at 42. And that gave me, I can't tell you how much hope that gave me. I was like, Gatemouth Brown? Or no, T Model Ford. His wife, as she was divorcing him and leaving him, gave him a guitar and was like, go play guitar. And he did it. He was like, okay, cool. I'm going to go become a blues musician. And he did. And so, yeah, I think that's my brand, is like 43-year-old singer who is teaching herself guitar. And, but I've had a lot of luck along the way with like wonderfully supportive musicians who have said, just go, just do it, go make sounds and sing, you know? And so, yeah. But I want everybody to do that in whatever capacity it is, you know, business, exercise, whatever they want to do.
We sure keep encouraging our clients and our potential clients and our audience. It's like, do it. And gosh, I will never forget, you know, one of my investing heroes, Ken Fisher, he tells a story that he was, you know, went to college to do a degree in forestry of all things. His dad was Phil Fisher, a very famous stock trader. Okay. And Ken was getting into his mid-30s when his dad was like, well, what do you really want to do? And he says, well, I really want to build my own investment firm. He said, but I'm too old. You know, by the time I get going, I'm going to be X years old. Yeah. His dad goes, and how old are you going to be if you don't do it?
Wow, that's such a great thing to say.
Story.
That's amazing. Yeah, that sums it up. Fortunately, I have like cool parents that, while they didn't really understand the music quest. I feel like they set a really good example about aging in general. They're super youthful and they never were negative about aging, and so I just wasn't raised with this like timeline of like, oh, you're supposed to be this way when you're 40 and give up on things, you know, like my mom hiked a 14er up in Colorado on her 70th birthday and sent me a picture from the top of the mountain, you know. It was like, oh, all right, cool. So yeah, I'm grateful.
Yeah, James and I hit that about 2 years ago when all of our friends, family, associates, and even some of our enemies are like, why are you guys starting a new company? Your company you've got's been doing really well. And we're like, why not?
Why not? Right? Yeah.
We know this can help people. Why would we not do this?
Yeah.
So tell us about your guitar on the wall. That looks really neat. Is that cherry wood or cherry stain?
I think it might. I'm really terrible about knowing the details of my gear. It might be mahogany. It is a cherry stain. If you see it up close, it is, you can see the wood grain. I do know that the guy I bought it from put humbucker size P90s in it. I believe that's the deal.
Nice.
But I got it and it's cool, but it needs like a proper setup. And sometimes it can be hard for me to find somebody who wants to do a setup on a left-handed guitar. I did find the guy, but he's also like the guitar tech I'm his barber. And I think he guitar techs for like ZZ Top and Reckless Kelly and Jimmy Vaughn. So I'll probably be kind of lower on the list, but,
or just make him do it while he's going in for the straight razor shave.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually a good call. I should do that. I should be like, how good of a haircut do you want today? But I have more guitars than anyone at my skill level has a business of owning. But some of them were gifts. Some of them I've collected. I'm also super into like weirdo guitars. So my passion is kind of cigar box guitars and 3-string guitars and stuff like that. Because I really like slide and I like the freedom that I really like approaching things sort of out of necessity because I'm late to the game, approaching things from sort of like a childlike approach. I don't know music theory. I'm teaching myself. So sometimes I need to just pick up something and make sounds and have fun so that I don't give up. And cigar box guitars, while they do require skill, you can also play them with very little skill and make very cool sounds. And I love that about them. So yeah, I own tons of gear. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
So who are some of the interesting people you've met in your musical journey? You have any good stories you want to share?
Oh, man. I mean, it started when I was a fan. I ate barbecue in the back of Antone's with, I think, Maceo Parker, because I snuck back there. So I've definitely met some interesting, just being in Austin 26 years, you're bound to meet some interesting people, but I feel like it's sort of the people you don't expect are the interesting ones. There's a club owner in Clarksdale, Mississippi. There's a famous juke joint called Red's Juke Joint, and I've hung out with Red himself, and everybody's scared of Red, and there's a reason why. He wears like really dark sunglasses inside and doesn't speak much, and he's intimidating, but once you get to know him, he's like a teddy bear and he's cool. He wouldn't remember me. I hung out with him and I loved him, but he would never remember me. But yeah, it's sort of like the club owners and the engineers and the people in the background often are really interesting characters. I mean, of course the musicians, but I'm gonna like draw like a really weird blank. But I like a lot of names that people won't know. Like I like the guys from Left Lane Cruiser a lot. They're just super, super nice guys. They've been supportive of my career. There has been an interesting thing I've observed. It's probably off topic, but I've noticed a thing about musicians that you can really tell a musician, especially like the really high level people. You can tell the comfort that they have with themselves based on how encouraging they are of new talent. Because I know quite a few, especially guitar players in Austin, who are world-class musicians, people who Eric Clapton invite to play his birthday party. And I've had one of those guys say, just do it, just go. And like when I was playing drums or playing guitar, just like go have fun. And then I've also met like really amazing musicians who are maybe threatened by people who don't know the music theory, but it really reflects more on them and they're not as encouraging. So that's been a really interesting part of the journey, is seeing who is like, yeah, welcome, come. We don't care if you know the circle of fifths, and then there's the people who are like, well, if you don't know that and you don't play 5 nights a week, you don't count. So that's been interesting. Yeah. And I definitely want to be the person who welcomes everybody in someday. Yeah.
That's a super important thing. I've heard James preach this in the business world over and over and over again. We need to encourage people. Mm-hmm. We need to have decent and rational conversations with people. And if somebody's better than me at something or better than James, then that's great. We'll learn from them. We'll encourage them, because the pie is always expanding.
Yes.
Always.
That's the term, is like I know that people think there's a ton of competition, but there isn't. There's room for everybody. I don't know. In business and music, I've just experienced that there's room to encourage people. Musicians can be protective of their gigs and if they have a residency at a club, and I get it. But I'm not after those spots, that's not my goal, but yeah, there's room for everybody. But it's interesting. If I really were to do the numbers, I think more people are encouraging, and same with fans. I think more people want you to succeed than not. Maybe the people who aren't as nice get the mic a little too often, but across the board, I feel like generally people are kind and want you to succeed. Yeah.
I mean, that is a really interesting take, isn't it? The people who are unable to encourage others, who blank others, who don't show up. The list goes on. Mike and I have had plenty of those, and it's easy to take those comments or those actions as criticisms for ourselves. Like, we're not worthy because they didn't turn up, or we're not worthy because they oh yeah, I really shouldn't do this because they didn't give me a heartfelt negative is better than a brush off, right? So
that's true.
So yeah, but I mean, ultimately, it's their limiting beliefs, their lack of confidence, their internal world. And although they might seem ahead of someone, that they will never progress past a certain point.
Yes.
And that's probably seen in music. It's certainly seen within the entrepreneurial world. And although they're there and it might take us time to reach there, we only need to stay true to our path, and then we will go past them.
And go past is the right word.
And an open.
Yeah, go past is the right word. When I encounter that kind of energy, I'm like, okay. And then I avoid them like the plague because I don't like that negativity. And then I just go, I don't even want to stay on that level. I want to go past that. So yeah, it's, but that took time to learn.
It does take time and experience to learn that. Yes.
Yeah.
But
because everybody wants approval, and you want to hear you're doing a great job. You have a good idea. Not everybody's going to say it, and that's okay. Like you said, even like a productive negative, cool. Like one of my best encounters with a musician, and he is a monster musician. He's a drummer, and he approached me at a show. I played the Skylark Lounge at the time. I was drumming and singing, and I knew who he was. I was like, oh, this guy's amazing. And he came up, and he was complimentary, but he wasn't blowing smoke. But he gave me really, people just say, sounded great, loved it, and that's nice. And you say thank you. But he said, sounded great, but hey, can I give you a suggestion? And I was like, yeah, cool. And he said, you're playing too many songs in the same key. He said, I really like your singing, but I want to hear you play in different keys. And I wasn't the guitar player at the time, and I wasn't really paying too much of attention to the key. I didn't care. I was counting beats as a drummer. And he was 100% right. And he was suggesting that I add more variety to my set. And now I think about that. Not only do I think about writing more songs in different keys, when I write a set list, I put songs that are in the same key far apart from each other to create dynamics. And so that little bit of criticism, which he started with a compliment, then he gave me authenticity, and I left that gig with this huge piece of information that I'm still grateful for today, So yeah, criticism can be the best thing ever. It's nice when people do it gently. That's all. Yeah.
And those sort of people always, like, they don't have to give much, but because they have such experience, as you said, like even a few words or a couple of sentences or just a minute talking, and often those, we sit in the entrepreneurial world, but they offer like the 1%. They don't offer like you 10 things. The sounds is wrong, the beats blah blah blah. Yes. It's just one small thing, which is the 1%. But that 1% the way it can be funneled can turn into a huge impact.
Yeah, and that's the sign of a super pro, because they're super specific. They noticed something and they went, I like what you're doing. Maybe just turn this one little knob, and it's like, So yeah,
it can be really mind bending. James and I have both experienced that, and it's fantastic when people give us feedback. Yeah. And sometimes people give feedback and they don't know the profound impact. So
that guy still doesn't know that. In fact, I need to circle back and be like, hey.
I was going to say, and for the whole audience listening too, if somebody has an effect on you, even if it happened 20 years ago, you can still send them a note. Let them know.
Yes. Yeah. It's just those little moments. And it also tells you that they were paying attention, because someone can walk up and say, great job, and they were looking at their cell phone the whole time or totally zoned out. And, it's like this little ego blip for you of like, oh, great job, thanks. But that one specific sentence told me that he listened to my whole set, because he knew that every song was was too close to the same keys. So I was like, that guy was paying attention. So that time that he gave me was really valuable. Yeah.
So I know our audience knows about James's former career as a bluesman.
Don't ever say former. Once a bluesman, always a bluesman.
Always a bluesman. Yes, you're correct. I stand corrected.
Yeah, that is true.
What's next for Red on Yellow Music? Where are you guys going to be playing?
Well, I'm going to circle back with Red on Yellow in the fall. I honestly don't know if it'll come back together. My co-founder and collaborator, Emanuele, he kind of got scooped up by a pretty big, like Red Dirt country act, pretty massive, like touring operation, which he was playing with simultaneously with Red on Yellow. But they've really kind of taken off since the pandemic. It's a demographic that did not slow down during the pandemic. So, and like he has to make a living, he has a family, and like I'm super supportive of him, and we will, I think, in the future circle back and always write together. But my drummer had to take another job, like people just kind of dispersed. And but honestly, the past year has been like this weird gift where I had this break to reevaluate, and I was writing in a really different way anyway, and was kind of ready to try new things. So right now it's just going to be bare solo. I've got a couple festival gigs booked this fall. I'm doing a cigar box festival in November, and I'm going to go out to the Deep Blues Festival in Mississippi in October and do some solo shows. So I'm not really reaching out and booking because I'm writing and I need a set. So like I've got probably an hour and I want 2 hours. But if people reach out to me and say, hey, I know you're doing solo stuff, I'll like consider a gig. But I'm like super excited about it. And the goal is to probably eventually find a drummer and maybe do duo stuff. I'm of the opinion that the drummer is always the most important person in the band. So
Obviously.
obviously. So I really want to find a drummer that I gel with. The hill country style, they don't do a lot of fills and soloing and stuff like that. They serve the song and hang on a groove forever, which I'm all about. I'm not even really into guitar soloing. Like if you want to bore me, play me a really long guitar solo. I like long, steady grooves. So yeah, I'm just super focused on kind of my solo duo thing, and it's kind of back to the drawing board and recreating my brand. Third time's a charm. But I'm super excited about the things coming up, and I'm recording in my home studio and going through that craziness. Hug your engineers. It's so hard what they do. So yeah.
So are you going to be doing any streaming, Facebook Lives or anything? Can we get you on a jam session with James sometime?
No, you can't. No, you can't.
So I'm trying to think. I did a live stream with Red on Yellow. It was the first night of the shutdown. So it was like the most successful live stream I could imagine because everyone in the world was in their house watching music. And 1-to-1 Bar has like the most primo sound.
Oh yeah, they do.
Unbelievable. So my first live stream was like the most top-notch quality you could imagine. I've since done one recently where I didn't know it, but they basically had my vocals up and no guitar, and it was like a 30-minute a cappella set, which I'm so not okay with. I'm a little gun shy about live streams right now unless I have total control. So
that makes sense.
That's a big maybe.
But right, we're coming up on our time. Do you have any additional questions, James?
I'm good. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
And hey, maybe we should dedicate this episode to the mighty Charlie Watsay with a drummer in-house. So how about that?
Final words. For all the most important drummers in the whole world. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. And thank you guys so much for taking the time and just geeking out with me. That was really cool.
Oh, we can't wait to have you back on. And your contact info will be down below the video.
Wonderful.
Everybody out there, get a hold of some Red and Yellow music. It's really awesome.
Thank you.
If you're in Austin, set up a haircut with Bear. She's really good.
Thanks, Mike.
Awesome.